the agency, we ended up doing more and more and more work. And I discovered that I really liked art direction. So I went from designing into art direction, then eventually into creative direction. From there, we moved from what was going on in Japan, and ended up in Thailand on vacation for a couple of weeks. Had a fantastic time, met all sorts of amazing people, and they all said, hey, you should come to Thailand. There's lots of creative stuff happening here. It's way more creative than Tokyo, or it's a different type of creativity. So that's what I did. I basically went and moved to Bangkok and spent 10 months hanging out and painting and just relaxing and visiting agencies there and chatting with guys about what the creative scene was like. And from there, I got job offers happening. So I've got back into the design and art direction and marketing industry. So that is kind of what we're going to end up talking about today, as well, is figuring out how to monetize the things that you love to do. And sometimes it's not like, oh, I'm going to make a product and then I'm going to sell the product and make money that way. It might be that you will be much happier finding something that is creative but more in demand, and doing that more as a professional way of making money, and then doing your more experimental or fun art as a side thing. So here we go. I've got a bunch of comments. Yes, better volume. Thanks. Now, is that Kriya? Did I say that right? Kriya, Kriya. And there's Ed. Hey, Ed. Better mention about crypto if you want to be posted on the crypto group. Hey, dude, I've been struggling with my crypto. And I think it's a great way to get paid as an artist, really, especially with the nutty stuff that's going on. Actually, you know what, Ed? I'm going to send you an email in a bit as soon as I finish doing this to see what you think about some of the things that are going on as far as beginners, and finding like live streams like this that'll help you out. But anyways, going off topic a little bit. So where was I? Oh yeah, so there I was in Bangkok, having lots of fun and working as a creative director and art director and doing art on the side. And then I started hanging out with these very, very cool guys who were kind of like this big underground group of artists that were doing a lot of political art. And that's when I made the decision to actually tell people that I was actually an artist. Before that, I didn't really consider myself an artist. And that's probably one of the biggest problems a lot of artists have, is saying I'm an artist and being authentic about it and basically living in the moment. So through those guys, I was able to step away from my commercial art and become a real artist, and it just opened up this amazing world of creativity for me. Basically, before any time I tried to do art, it was always about bottom line, and what I realized was that it was killing my creativity, because when I picked up my camera, it's like, okay, how am I going to monetize pictures that I'm going to take with of these people? And if I was doing a project, a layout or design, it would always be, well, I better negotiate the price and get a contract before I start being creative. So a lot of times I think what happened is I ended up doing stuff that was less creative and more commercial. So for me, how my monetization of my skill sets worked out was the ability for me to create money through doing stuff that really wasn't that creative, and at least that's how I felt. Everybody else thought, oh yeah, great design, love the colors, whatever. But for me, it was more not doing what I love to do. So then when I started doing pure art, it revolutionized the way I was thinking, and it really helped me do much better work for my commercial clients. And a lot of times I would do when I was working with people, I'd end up doing 2 projects or two designs for people. I said, hey, this is what you ask for, and here's a crazy creative approach. And, I'd say about 50% of the time, people would say, oh, we kind of like the crazy idea that you gave us. Let's go with that. So that's how I was able to do way more creative stuff. So anyways, as Lisa's saying, I have to be louder. I don't know how much louder I can be from this without yelling. You guys can turn up your volume, maybe that'll help. So we've got some people here. I just wanted to ask, do you have any specific questions that you have in regard to what you're doing before we get into the workshop part of this program? Is there anything that you guys specifically are struggling with as artists or as creative people or somebody that's impassioned about something? What direction do you want to go? What type of creativity that you're struggling with, that type of stuff. And I'll let some people send me some comments. Okay, again, a couple here. Let me just adjust my screen here so I can get moving on this, covering up all this other stuff. All right, cool. Okay. So, yeah, looks like a lot of these questions are related to what do I do? Like, what's the first step? So I think we'll just jump into the workshop side of things. So like I was talking before with the discovering what works for you on a creative side, you have to kind of sit back and figure out how to discover what works for you. And it may seem simple. So, oh, I'm a photographer. I just want to make money with photography. It's a little bit more complex than that, or it's actually the opposite of complex. More, you have to simplify it. So let's say if you love photography, and when you get up, that's all you think about is, oh, I wish I had my camera right now to go out and take pictures, but damn, I got to go to work. One of the things that you can do to test that is bring your camera to work and actually try and introduce that creative hobby you've got into your workday. And that's a great way to see if you enjoy getting directed with your photography, because a lot of people, it's great to just take pictures, but when somebody's telling, oh, can you take a picture of this, and they start giving you advice and start art directing you, a lot of people don't enjoy that part of the creative process. So you might discover that, oh, I love taking pictures, but I really hate making money. And that's something that happened to me. Like, I took pictures for years and years and years, and then eventually I realized that I hated photography because it meant all this compromise that I ended up with. So for you, it's not something that you're going to discover instantly. Like at the end of this workshop, it's like, oh, I know exactly what I'm going to do. I actually stopped shooting for 5 years, and then I started shooting again, but on a completely more creative and radical way. And that's how I was able to evolve my creative style to a point where I was excited and happy about it again. So just because you're doing something now on a hobby level doesn't mean that it can translate into something that you can monetize. It's got to be something that you're so impassioned about that you will put up with the BS of people telling you what to do, or pointing you in the wrong direction, so what you produce for them isn't very high quality. They just don't know it. And that's probably one of the most frustrating things as an artist or a creative person or an impassioned person. They want to do it in a pure sense, in the pure way. If you're a painter, it's the same thing. They love painting, and then you decide to morph from painting to doing murals, and that's a specific skill set. So you're going to spend some time figuring out how to do that, maybe working with some people, and then you start doing commissioned mural work. Then you have to go through this whole process of getting what you're going to put on a massive wall pre-approved. And some people just hate that part of the process. So when I say discover your passion and discover what you love to do creatively, that's kind of what I mean. It's more about what are you willing to put up with to continue to do that particular medium. If you are, let's say your creativity, your passion is by networking people, and you decide, okay, let's create a network and then we'll monetize the network, and I'll be able to live by the monies I charge the network or organization that I create for managing that organization. You might discover after building this network and getting lots of people involved that the managing of that particular network isn't really what you're passionate about. You're passionate about the ability to meet a bunch of people and socialize. So then you have to decide to step away from the management part of things if you've got that luxury, and focus more on what you're impassioned about. So everything, all these things, they take time. So don't expect to be able to make a decision tonight or tomorrow or next week and say, okay, this is what I'm going to do. You can do that, but you have to also be open to the idea that maybe that's in the long run not what you're going to do. I mean, it's great to start, but don't put it in stone, because that's a really good way to make yourself miserable. Okay, we got a little note here. Let me see what she's saying. Yeah. All right. So there you go. It's nice when I get feedback that lets me know that what I'm saying is resonating. One of the things I'm very passionate about and I love doing is educating. So for me to do this and talk to you people and help you make decisions and move forward and give you strategies and stuff, I get a lot of benefit out of it. So the more questions that you throw at me and the more specific I can give you answers, the happier I'll be. Anyways, so let's assume that you guys written down, or you have a pretty good idea what you want to do. I want to be a photographer. I want to be build a super community. I want to be a muralist. I want to create wealth by coaching artists. It can be anything as long as you're passionate about it. Let's define for most people what impassioned means, because unless when you're sitting around all you think about is what you're impassioned about, let's say let's say garden design, let's go left field. I know people that love to do landscaping and do all sorts of stuff in the garden. So that's all they talk about, right? You sit down with them and you're having a tea or a beer, and the conversation has to be about what's happening in gardens right then. And then that same person, when they're reading books about gardens. They're always educating themselves about that particular thing. And then I'm sure just before they go to bed, they think about gardening and landscaping. And then when they wake up, they think, oh my God, I can get up at 6 a.m. because I've got this cool little thing or this cool little idea I can do in my garden or for one of my clients' gardens. That is passion. And having that much energy and focused intensity about a specific topic, regardless if it's painting or photography or landscaping or anything creative. I mean, gosh, you can be super impassioned about being an accountant and just love being an accountant. If that's all you think about and all you study, that's your life. And that's what motivates you. So when I say passion, that's what I mean. And it's for me, I thought I was super impassioned about photography, and that lasted in the commercial industry maybe 10 years, and then I was burnt out. So you can be passionate about something, and then something may click one day where, I've kind of done it all. I've done this type of photography, or I've shot this type of photography. I've shot these, I've been published in these particular magazines, or I've done paintings and I've done a mural in 2 cities, or I've done 15 landscape projects over the last 10 years. And then the passion disappears because in your brain, it just says, okay, we've kind of done anything that we can do. We're not going to do, we're not going to get any better, or there's other opportunities that we're more interested in. So passions can change during your life too. So one of the things about this is that if you can take that passion and monetize it, and then you pivot from one passion to another. So I pivoted from, let's see, my passion set. Totally excited about photography, then got into photographic studios, and then got into lighting specialist, and then assistant photography for product photography, and then ended up doing set design, and then from set design got a little bit into computers, and then from computers got into desktop publishing, and desktop publishing got into art direction into creative direction, and then running agencies, and then back into photography. So like, as your life progresses, you can be passionate about multiple things as long as you are able to monetize them enough to live and be happy. A lot of times, if you do what you're impassioned about, it's not about the money anymore, it's about the next project. And that's where I am 99% of the time. If somebody comes to me and says, hey Bob, I've got this so super cool project and I would love for you to be involved in it, I'm there. I'm just like, great. And all my passion's involved and all my energy, and I'm having trouble sleeping, and I'm just thinking about it and coming up with all sorts of ideas and stuff. And then a week later, they say, we didn't get the money. Oh, it's so frustrating. So for me, I live for the next project. So that's why I'm constantly doing so many different things, right? That's why I got into podcasting. That's why I got into lighting, special effects, all these type of things, because I just go all in. And it's a great way to learn. So after doing that for 10 or 20 or 30 years, you have this amazing spectrum of skill sets. And maybe that's what you end up monetizing by building an agency or building a company that can do multiple things. And you end up teaching people in that organization how to do those things so that you can provide an amazing service. So anyways, a long rant, but I think it's really important that you understand the power of passion and the ability as a creative person or just an impassioned person to understand that it can drive your life for many, many, many years. And just because you start in one section, ending up at a completely different area 5, 10, 15 years later. Okay, here we got, how do you choose if you are multi-passionate about your creativity? Well, let's go back and let's take all the emotion away and look at it more on an analytical sense. If you think about something all the time, get super excited thinking about doing a project or relating to that topic, if you think about it and read about it and study about it, all that all the time, and it drives people crazy, and they say, man, Bob, you just get over it, let's talk about something else, then you're passionate about that one thing. But it's okay to be passionate about multiple things too. The thing is, you've got to understand there's a huge difference between being passionate about something as a hobby and being passionate about it to monetize. And that's kind of what we want to get into next. Okay, so let's talk about you've decided that you have something you're passionate about that you love doing and you would like to try and monetize. So the next thing you have to do is be a little bit pragmatic and say, okay, is anybody interested in this product or service, this creative product or service that I'm passionate about? And that is the tough question to get answered, okay? What you need to do is basically be yourself, be honest, and actually go out there and do a survey. Just talk to people about it, right? So for argument's sake, I wanted to do street photography, right? And photojournalistic photography. And way back in the day when I was in Toronto, I didn't have access to accounts that were doing that. There was just so much commercial work. So what I did is I started a small sub business where I did photojournalistic wedding photography. Now, nobody had been doing that before I started doing it, or very few people had. And what I did is I told the people, look, I'll charge you $500. I'll turn up at your wedding. You buy the film, you give me the film, I put the film in my camera, I'll shoot all the film. When we run out of film, you give me the $500, I'm out of there. You process it and you take care of the rest. Because when you're a photographer, the thing that takes up all the time and drives you nuts is trying to make money by selling prints. Like if you go to a wedding photographer these days, it's like, oh yeah, we're going to do a video and this, that, the other thing. They do all this stuff, and then it's about, going through thousands and thousands of images or hundreds and hundreds of images. Oh, I want this one, and they charge you for every single one, which is a great way to make money. I just hated doing that. So for me, my solution, the way I built my service was, I'm just there to shoot. I'm going to have a great time, and because I was impassioned about it, I'm going to have some drinks, and we're going to have a laugh. And I was part of the entertainment. I mean, if you ever see me when I'm shooting, that's when I'm happiest. It's just shooting stuff without lighting set up and just taking pictures of people, because that's what I love to do. So that's what you have to decide. How can I take what I'm passionate about and make it into a product? How can I step away from the emotion for a little bit and say, okay, I love to garden. How can I monetize that in a way that it's not going to drive me nuts 6 months down the road where I'm going to quit doing that? So if anybody that's watching right now, if you've got a specific thing that you'd like me to give some advice on how to monetize a specific product, whether if it's a community, or if you've got you want to teach art, or if you want to paint murals, or if you want to get cars, fix up the cars, make them super cool, and then sell them. I mean, that's all passion-based projects, right? Those are things that people work their whole lives and then retire, and when they retire, that's what they do. What I'm telling you to do is, why can't you do that now? Why can't you decide, you know what, I would love to do this every day, and then just do it? And I think for most people, that's the hardest part. You've got to take away, well, what happens if it doesn't work? What happens if this? What happens? Well, don't worry about it. If you're scared that you're going to lose your house, or you're going to starve and get kicked out on the street, then you have to have some form of income, whether that's like going to work 20, 30 hours a week and not spending any of your money on toys and playthings, and investing all that money into your passion, your business, and slowly building it up until you're confident. That's a great way of doing it, okay? That's a great strategy. One of the things that a lot of people never do is they constantly second guess their ideas. And the worst thing you can do is second guess your ideas, because you're not getting opinions from people around you. You're getting opinions from your inside of yourself. And that isn't proper surveying. So going back to the beginning, once you've decided what your product or service is going to be, you have to go out there and ask people, right? Sit down with them over a beer or something. Hey, Joe, I'm thinking of doing landscaping. Hey, Joe, I'm thinking of starting this cool art community. Hey, Joe, I'm thinking of doing murals. What do you think? And get their feedback. And a lot of people say, are you nuts? Are you crazy? You're going to starve. It doesn't matter if absolutely everybody tells you, you know what, that's great, Bob, but there's no way I'm going to buy purple flamingos. I just not interested. Even though you're passionate about it and you're going to make these purple flamingos and you want to sell them, I just doesn't work for me. So maybe what you're passionate about isn't something that can be commercialized, or you have to change the way people think. Then it becomes more of an educational marketing problem. And for many, many companies, that is their problem. The biggest mistake I would say most businesses make, and this is entrepreneurs, and entrepreneurs are always impassioned, so that's part of this topic, is that they think of a great product, or what they assume is a great product, and then they go out there And so just Lisa was asking, what's the shortcut to make? There's no shortcut. Sorry. You know, I think a lot of times if you try and cut corners and stuff, you're not going to get the right feedback from people. You've got to go out there and test it. You got to get in front of people. You've got to find out what people want, and then that's what you give them. But everybody comes up with the idea, they make the product, and then they try and force it on people because they think it's amazing. Doesn't mean anybody else cares. And that's just a hard fact of life. One of the reasons social media is such a great medium is, well, these days, is that you can build a community of like-minded people anywhere in the world. And there can be thousands or tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of people. One of the best and biggest strategies you could do is by building your communities. And by building those communities, you will understand, especially if they're like-minded, let's say they're all into gardening or they're all into photography or whatever, you know what they want, you know what they're excited about. Then you can create products or services that match that community. That's an amazing way to monetize what you're impassioned about. So you've got your service and you've got a product and you've done some survey work and you started to notice that people are saying, hey, you know, this is really cool. This is neat. You know, Aunt May likes it. Your mom likes it. A couple of guys at the bar like it. So the next stage is to actually go out there and test it in the market. And you might have to create it. You might have to do a freebie job for somebody, like building a portfolio of existing work, because it's kind of like you're in a catch-22 phase now, where I have this product, people kind of like it, but nobody's willing to actually buy it or use it because I have zero experience of actually executing if somebody says yes. So then you get down to approaching companies and saying, hey, I want to do this project for you guys, let's say landscaping. I notice your office has this beautiful garden or potentially beautiful garden, but nobody's taking care of it. Can I come in and I'll do it for cost, right? So if you guys pay for the materials, which you were going to pay for anyways, I'll just come in and I'm just going to make it amazing. And that's what you do. You go and do it. You do it at cost, and you do it as a passion project, and you photograph the event. You photograph the creation of it, the before, the in the middle, the after. You start posting videos to your community. You just expose everybody. Look what I'm doing. This is cool. This is the best way to get the word out in an authentic way. It's maybe not the most exciting thing, you know. It's but you know, it's not like a flashy commercial. It's not like a 2-page ad. It doesn't really matter. The people that are impassioned about or want to have a beautiful garden or an interesting plot of land transformed into something amazing, those are the people you want to be talking to, right? It's the classic adage, preaching to the choir. Like, if you love something and you're hanging out with a bunch of other people that love something, and one of those people doesn't have time because they make money doing something else, then they would commission you to help them do what they love to do. So that's a good example of how somebody that has a service can take that service, introduce it to a bunch of people, and then find like-minded people, and the people within that community would say, okay, I don't have time, can we do this? Or I have this idea, can you help execute it for me? I would say 9 times out of 10, that's how people get started. Once you get a bit more of a reputation, or you have a larger community and you're kind of all interconnected and you're communicating all the time through social media, through different mediums, either video or text or just doing blog posts or whatever, people are following up you're doing, you're top of mind all the time, and what will happen is people will start recommending you, right? So if you're constantly saying, oh, check out this amazing new thing I did, check out this beautiful photograph I did, check out this amazing painting I did, isn't this a cool event that we had the other day? People that are within your community are going to start running into other people and in their conversation saying, oh yeah, we're thinking of doing a wedding, or we want to do a special event, or we've got this big new building, we don't know what to do with the interior. then those people will say, oh, I know this guy or I know this lady and she's super talented and she's doing all this amazing stuff. I'll connect you with her, right? So that's word of mouth. And I would say 99.9% of communications that on social media are people reaching out saying, hey, I want to do X. Do you know anybody that can help me do it? I mean, you see it all the time on social media. And if you know somebody, boom, you get back to them and say, yeah, you should check out this person. You should check out that person. Or if that's your community, you notice it and you get back to them and say, hey, yeah, that's cool. I'd love to work with you on that project. So that's kind of the way it works these days, right? And you don't have to be spending a ton of money on big marketing campaigns. It's more about building your community, communicating with your community all the time, and just being yourself. And the people that don't get that, you're never going to sell them anyways. So I personally think this is the most up-to-date and authentic way to sell these days. And it doesn't really matter if you're selling cars or paintings or photography or trying to build up a community. It's all basically the same thing. It's being authentic, and it's getting around to helping people do the projects or ideas that they have. They just don't have time to execute. And a lot of times that's what I was doing as an art director, as a creative director, was just helping people execute amazing ideas. And it was a lot of fun. It was amazing. So let me just take a look at my notes here for a sec, because I have been rambling a little bit. Sorry about that. Yeah, we talked about community, all that type of stuff. Now, is anybody having a hard time with the community angle? That's still working with you? Let me see, I got a couple comments here. Okay. So, can you scale? Now, the thing with starting a business or starting a creative endeavor is that the ability to deal with success. I would say 9 times out of 10, people just don't have the fortitude or the funding or the time to deal with success. And which sounds ridiculous, but I would say 9 times out of 10, that's what destroys companies, right? They have a product, they have an idea, they get it out, they start showing it to people. People really like it. They tell their friends, more people want it. Then they run into this big problem. It's like, oh, now I have to make 20 of these in a week or 20 of these in a day. I can't do that. So they can't scale. So one of the things you have to decide at the beginning, or at least after you've made your couple of prototypes and you've chatted with people, is, can I outsource this, or can I, spend a week concentrating and create 20 pieces that I will sell over the next month? How scalable is it? Because the problem with most things that you're passionate about, or if it's connected with your creativity or whatever, you forget about that part of it, the nuts and bolts. And most businesses, that's when they fail, is when they're successful to a point and then they have to grow to meet the demand of the market. And if they get their timing wrong or whatever, they can destroy their company. So it's the same thing with being creative or promoting and pushing something you're super passionate about, is understanding how to scale it so that at the beginning you can kind of figure out where you have to go. So you have some sort of roadmap. When I get to section A, I should have this prototype done and have this type of feedback. And then I get to B, and these are the things, and then C, D, E, F, and then when I get to F, I have to be able to produce 50 of these or 100 of these or 1,000 of these. So if you know that's where you're going to be in 6 months or 10 months or whatever, there's nothing stopping you talking with suppliers and talking with people about doing 10, 20, 30, 100, 1,000, 10,000 of what you do, and finding out if it's feasible. Are there resources there that you can rely on to go to in the future and say, hey, we're ready to go. We want to do X. we want to do 5 weddings a month, or I want to do 27 portraits, or I want to do 1 major art project every 6 months, and know how much that costs in time and also in organization and funds for hiring other people to actually scale up. So you have 20 people doing the same thing and just instead of you. Then what happens is you become more of an overseer, an art director, and taking what you've developed, built your community, built your market, and then going back to those people and saying, hey, okay, I'm going to produce this. It's going to cost this much. Would you be interested in buying it because it's 20% more? Or it's not the same as when I do it, but it's 20% less. And that's a huge question to ask, right? Like, if people are buying your paintings, let's say, and they love them, but they cost $6,000 for a painting and it takes you 3 months to paint it, well, then you're making $2,000 a month, and it's probably a lot of work and it's going to take a lot of time. And maybe you're doing 2 or 3 commissions, but it's a hard sell. To ask somebody to give you $6,000 for a painting is a lot harder to sell than say, hey, I have this amazing digital printing press where I can give you a print of that $6,000 piece for $250, right? And it's beautiful, it's special paper, it's archivable, and if you want, we can have it put in a frame, or we can arrange for it to be framed in your city. What size would you like it? All those type of things. So digitization of your product is super critical to your ability to scale, okay? Now with photography, that's kind of, well, it's pre-digitized, right? So you take a picture, you got to make sure it's high enough resolution, so when you blow it up really, really large, it looks nice, it does not pixelate. But if you've got something that's non-digitizable, let's say, something that you actually have to do, one of the things would be masseuse, right? You can't digitize the masseuse experience, right? You can maybe sit in a massage chair, but it's not the same. So when you're looking at your way back to the beginning of this conversation, is when you're looking at what you're passionate about and what your creativity is, you also have to ask yourself, can I digitize this? And the reason I say digitize is because everything's on the internet now, right? Everybody researches on their phones, and if they can buy your product on their phone and have it shipped to them, they're going to buy it, right? Now, if it's something that has to be manufactured and then distributed, back in the day, you were kind of stuck, because then you would have to go to a manufacturer, get 10,000 of something made. Then you'd have to figure out a distribution network and ship it everywhere. And it would cost you a fortune, which means that people couldn't really afford your product. These days, we have all sorts of opportunities with things like Amazon, and produce a product or make a prototype of a particular product and then get it made and then drop shipped. So basically, you get the product made, and then as it's needed, it's shipped to different locations and the orders are fulfilled. Now, Amazon charges a ton of money to do that, right? Because they're including the shipping, all the admin, their computers, the backup, the security. I mean, they spend money doing it, but they're taking like 47%. So then you have to decide, can I scale and still make enough money to survive, right? So the thing about your creative project or your impassioned product is, if it's non-digital, if you can't digitize it simply, and it's a service-driven thing, how do you simplify that so that you can get more people exposed to a particular thing? Okay, so let's say you want to teach people how to be better at painting or better at designing clothes. Then the way to do it by digitizing the concept or the consulting is through YouTube, or through videos, or through a podcast, or through something like this, like a live stream. that enables you to reach all sorts of people in one go. So you spend an hour talking, and then once that's done, that is a digital asset, right? It's something that's you can take and you can distribute, or you can use it tomorrow, 6 weeks now, 3, 4, 5 years from now. So if you create stuff that's educational and evergreen, and when I say evergreen, something that isn't time stamped, where if you do when you do your educational pieces, if those pieces are specific to certain things that are happening, like Christmas or 2020 or something like that, then that's timestamped and it's not evergreen. You can't use it 3 years from now because people say, oh, it's 2020, it's out of date. Even if the data or information is not out of date, by saying 2020, it timestamps it and people will assume it's out of date. So when you get better at doing more evergreen communications and information about your product or service or whatever, then you can reutilize it. So an example was I got into podcasting, so I wanted to see how far I could push it and how many people could I get to download my podcast. I didn't want to monetize it. I just wanted to find out how hard it was to get X amount of people to download it. So I peaked after 7 years of doing this podcast about business books. I was up to 500,000 downloads, right? That's a lot of downloads. The amount of work it took me when I was at the peak with 500,000 downloads actually took me less time and effort than when I had 20 people downloading. Because over those 5 seasons or 7 seasons of me doing these interviews, I developed systems. I was able to figure out how to do stuff more efficiently, and that is the same type of scaling, right? So if you figured out how to do that and you're just into it and you're slowly figuring it out over, not like weeks and weeks and weeks, but years, then when you kind of hit the point where it's like, okay, I figured it out, or okay, we're scaled up to point, let's monetize to a different level, then it's very, very simple to do. It's the getting there that's the hard part, right? So with this, with the understanding what your passion is, or understanding what the creative project you're going to do that's going to make life more interesting for you and make you happy when you get up in the morning, a lot of times it's not about making a ton of money, okay? If you go to somebody like me and say, oh, Bob, I want you to design or help me put out a book and do the design and the marketing stuff and all that type of things, I think, yeah, it's great, but I mean, why? Why do you want to do a book? And if the person says, oh, I'm just so passionate about it, I just want more people to know, and it's not about the money, then you have a much higher chance of being successful. If you write a book to make a ton of money, 9 times out of 10, you are not going to be successful. Or when you actually get the book done and published and out, you're not going to get the satisfaction, because you're actually not, the creation and the finishing and the production and the distribution of the book, that's not what you're passionate about, right? You're passionate about the money. So why do a book? Get into real estate or become a broker and get excited about money. It's not a very creative, interesting way of living, but for some people, that's what drives them. That's what they're passionate about. That's what turns them on. So that's fine. But for the creative and the passionate driven person, it's not about the money. It's about doing the projects. Going all the way back when I mentioned that before, I'm driven by new projects, new ideas, new opportunities, new challenges. And that's what energizes me. That's what gets me excited. That's what makes me jump up in the morning and say, okay, it's 6 a.m. I can't sleep anymore because I've got these great things that I want to try and do. That is creative. It's like a creative and passionate life. And for me, I think it's the best way to live. Now, I'm not saying everybody has to live that way, but I tell you, it's not about me getting up and doing these projects so I can cash in and buy a big fancy house. That's not what I'm passionate about. When I finish a project, it's like, okay, when's the next project? For me, it's about doing, and money is a byproduct, right? It's not about, oh, if I do this project, I can charge $50,000 so I can buy X, and that's going to make me happy. For me, it's like, I'm going to do this project. It's got a $50,000 budget. Awesome. Let's do something crazy and just make that a $300,000 looking project for $50,000. For me, that's my motivation, because at the end of it, if it looks frigging amazing and people are like, what? You did that for that? That's nuts. Well, for me, that's what turns me on. That's what makes me excited. And that is what a person that's impassioned about the project, that's what's driving them. So it's not about the money, guys. Now, sure, you can make money. You can make a ton of money. But that cannot be your underlying motivation, because then you're going to basically burn out. You're going to be, I didn't make enough money, or I'm not happy about this or that or the other thing, or you basically aren't authentic because you think you've got to be a certain way, you've got to dress a certain way to fool people or fool yourself. If you're passionate, you don't care about any of that stuff. And that's why I'm so excited that I had the opportunity to do so many amazing projects with so many cool people over so many years. I consider myself incredibly lucky, because when I think it was like 17 or 18, my dad said, look, Bob, you're going to have to get serious because you want to retire at 40, 50, or 60. And then I asked him, well, when do you want to retire? He said, well, I'm going to retire in 4 years when I'm 44. I said, well, that's great. He worked his whole life just for that goal. That's what he was impassioned about. He was impassioned about retiring at 44. And for me, I said, well, why couldn't I retire at 17 or 18 and do what I want for the rest of my life? And that's what I did. So for me, that is the big motivation. That's the big payoff, is living your life the way you want it to be. And if you're creative and you're impassioned about something, that's what you have to think about. So don't get into creating a product to make a ton of money and retire. Then you're not impassioned about making the product, you're impassioned about the retirement part of things. So there's probably more efficient ways to get to that retirement point, right? Maybe it's trading Bitcoin at these days. I mean, make a ton of money doing that. Anyways, so we've talked about defining your passion, understanding a realistic approach, and is your passion something that you can keep doing stuff with? Then we talked about taking your passion or your creative goals and saying, can I digitize it? Can I create a product around it or a service around it that I can charge people for to make some money? So we can, one, either step away from my day job eventually, or have a day job, but also on the weekends, maybe make a little bit of extra money, which is fun, but doing what I love to do. Okay, that's another way of doing it. Then the next thing is like, is it scalable? So I make something, people seem to love it. I've got a digital version of it, and now I have the whole world that I can tell them about, right? And then, so maybe, yeah, like we were talking before, you do a painting, you take the painting, and then you digitize the painting, and then you make small postcards out of it or whatever, and you sell that on your website, and you distribute it, and it just arrives on people's doors. And you get, your residuals or whatever. So that's very scalable, right? Like if 100 people want prints or 100,000 people want the prints, doesn't matter. It's just printing more stuff. Then it's understanding that, okay, you've got your product, you've got your passion, and it's scalable. Then it's looking back and saying, am I motivated to do the right things? Because that's where the sustainable part is. To go way back to the beginning, we were talking about, yes, you can do something you can burn out, or you can do something you love and do it for the rest of your life. So you have to constantly look at like, okay, I've built a community. I love building a community. They love my product. I get great feedback from them. They give me ideas for new products. I create those products. I sell them to those people. They love me because I made something that they wanted. And that just goes around and around, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. If after doing that for a year or 2 years or 3 years, you say, you know what, I don't care anymore. I've done this a million times. Sure, I made some money, but, I'm not passionate about it. That's fine. You can keep doing that or get somebody else to manage it because it's probably self-sustaining at that point. You can step back to something you did earlier in life, or you can go a completely different direction. You can pivot. And that's what I've done many, many, many times. It's like okay, I've been a desktop publisher, I've done all these books, I've done magazines, and I'm bored of doing this because I've done everything that I can do to my satisfaction. So now what do I want to do? Well, I kind of enjoyed managing, so then I became an art director, right? Then did this, that, and started working with agencies, and then it was like TV and all this type of stuff, and it was like, oh, hang on. I enjoy the coming up with the creative idea, not the actual management of the idea, because that's what art direction is, like taking an idea and making it happen. So then creative direction, then you're working directly with the clients, and it's sitting down and educating and helping people understand what they want to do and making sure that it was viable and then it was going to be on budget. I love doing that. So I did that for many years. So as you progress in life, it doesn't mean that you have to get stuck with the same thing that you decided to do at 20 or that decided to do at 30 or that decided to do at 40. Just because you started at 30 doesn't mean you have to do it for the rest of your life. As long as you're passionate and love what you're doing, that's the important thing, right? If you can make money doing it, even better. But don't look at it as like, I'll do this and then in 10 years I'm going to retire and then do something else. That's crazy. That's not what an impassioned lifestyle is about. That's not what a creative lifestyle is about. It's about being your own boss. It's about understanding what motivates you. And I'm going to go on back to this again. It's like, if it's all about money, sorry, you're never going to be happy. You know, it's unless making $1 million is going to make you happy. And quite frankly, I don't know anybody that strive for the whole life when they made $1 million to say, okay, now I'm going to quit. You know, I made $10 million. Now I'm going to quit. No, they're thinking, I get $10 million. I want to do another project. At that point, the money's irrelevant. I want to do stuff that I'm impassioned about, right? I want to do stuff that motivates me, makes me happy, because I get up in the morning and I'm happy sleeping 6 hours because that's all the time I'm willing to give to my sleep, because I want to go out and do a next project. I want to go out and do something cool with my community. I want to go out and hang out with all the people that love my products and have an art opening or whatever, right? So that's the motivation. Not about the money, all about the creativity and the passion. So let's just take a look at all the things that we were going to cover today. Talked about the beginning, discovering, create the product, can we distribute the product, monetization of the product, understanding if the product can be, if it's digitized, how can you expand it and make it available for people that are going to be more interested as they discover it through you talking about it, doing podcasts about it, doing blog posts about it, doing small videos about it every day, showing people what you're doing in your life so that they understand. It's like, wow, this is very cool. I like what they're doing. I see the process. I see how much work's involved. Yeah, I'll buy that. I think it would be a great thing to give to somebody, or to give to themselves, or to just support you. So really, that's it, guys. Like when I said in my intro video, was that it's simple, super simple, but it takes a lot of time and dedication. Anybody can do it. You just got to do it consistently, and you're going to be super successful. Maybe not monetarily, but definitely it's a really good way to spend your life here on earth, because hey, you only get one swing at the bat here, folks, right? And there's so many people that I know that were 40 and said, oh, I get it now, and started doing what they wanted to do. Or 50 or 65, retired, and said, I don't know what to do now, because they'd spent their whole life thinking that the goal in life was to stop working at 65, and then saying, oh, I guess I'll have to do hobbies now, or I guess I'll go to Florida and read a book on the beach. That is not a really, I mean, you know, for a lot of people, that's it. For me, no, I wanted to do, when I was 17, 18 years old, I wanted to be creative. I wanted to support myself doing creative, cool things. And that's what I've done over my whole life. And I've had to do a ton of different things, but it doesn't matter, because for me, as long as I was happy and I'm passionate about it, and I got enough money to feed myself and had a beer every now and again, and raise some kids and have a pretty fun life, that was the goal. And I'm going to keep on doing that and probably till I drop dead, because I've always loved doing what I've done. And I think of my whole creative career, I think I've worked 6 years out of my whole life. And I turned 60 the other day, okay? 6 years. Make it 10. For 10 years, I worked full time for somebody else. Now, out of those 5 of those 10 years, I was a pain in the butt for the people that I worked for, because I just had this impassioned approach to things, right? And I would do crazy things at the company. And sometimes they would be super successful, and sometimes the company wasn't too happy with me. But that was just the way I was. And that's why they hired me. They needed crazy creative person, crazy impassionate person to impress clients so that they could bill them ridiculous amounts of money for doing advertising. I mean, that was my job description. But there was other times where I worked for companies and it was awful, and they didn't understand creativity, didn't understand my value, didn't understand the importance of organization, all this type of stuff, and they were hopeless. And I didn't last for more than a year and a half. So my whole 60 years, okay, so 10 years, take let's say 15 years of that off, because I started doing art at 10, right? So for 50 years I've been creative. And out of those 50 years, 5 of those years were kind of wasted with idiots that didn't understand what I was bringing to the table. Another 5 paid me really nice money, but still wasn't good enough for me. And for the rest of the time, I've just done my own projects. And that is what you should be thinking about as a creative person, as an impassioned person. That's what should be motivating, to get out of your job or to work on the weekends towards your passion, to build a community, to find a product, to digitize the product, to get it out there so it can be making you a little bit of passive income or a little bit of a revenue, and eventually so you can step away, not to make money, but to spend more time on that project or on a different cool project. That's what it's all about. Anyways, look, I've ranted and I've raved and I've kind of talked about this again and all over the place for what have we got? Oh, about an hour. So what I'm going to do is thanks so much for all the comments. I'm sorry I didn't get to all of them. There got to be at least 30 or 40 in there. And if you have any questions or if you see this video at a later date, please give me an email and ask me, Bob, I'm thinking of doing X. What do you think? And I'd be happy to give you some free consulting advice. I mean, really, because for me, it's teaching. That's one of the things I'm passionate about. So you'd be doing me a favor by saying, Bob, what should I do? And, I'll spend half an hour with you talking about it. Now, after we've talked, you'll probably have 50 or 60 things you'll need to get done. But that doesn't matter. That's all part of it, right? And then do your thing. And if you can make some money at it, fantastic. As long as you're happy and you're impassioned and you love what you do, that is really what counts. So I just want to do a huge shout out to the art party. They are awesome. Lisa Lee is amazing. She does so much for the community. She does so much for so many people. She is an unsung hero. So I just huge shout out for her. Shout out for all the people that supported me over the years, and love it when you guys get back to me and tell me some stuff. And I've really, really, really enjoyed chatting with you guys today. As I said a second ago, please don't be shy. Reach out. And if you don't want to reach out to me, reach out to somebody else that you think is going to help you get to where you will be able to do something impassioned, something that will enable you to live a happier and more creative and more passionate life. So with that said, I bid you a fond adieu, and hopefully we'll be able to do one of these in the future. Bye-bye for now.